Have you ever had the strange feeling that the life you are living is not really yours? As if every choice, every desire, and every thought were shaped by something beyond you? If you look closely, you will realize that much of your identity may not have originated from your true essence, but rather from external influences, social expectations, and conditioning that has been imposed over time. But what would happen if you decided to free yourself from this illusion? If you stopped living according to the rules you never chose and started exploring who you really are? Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant scholars of the human mind, revealed one of the greatest secrets of personal development. Authentic life only begins when we find our true self. However, few people venture on this journey. Most spend their entire lives following an invisible script, playing a role that was assigned to them without questioning whether they really want to play it. Today, we will explore the hidden mysteries of the human psyche and the paths to escape this invisible prison. Let's dive into Jung's ideas and understand why so many people live trapped in a superficial identity, disconnected from their deeper essence. We'll discover what it really means to find yourself and how this knowledge can transform your perception of life. What comes next may challenge everything you believed about yourself. Are you ready for this journey? Since the dawn of civilization, human beings have sought to define themselves through the eyes of others. In ancient societies, acceptance by the group was a matter of survival. Exile meant death, and so, from birth, we learn to adapt, to hide certain parts of ourselves and to value that which makes us accepted. But does this need to belong still serve us? Or has it become an invisible burden, a prison for our true identity? Carl Jung was one of the first to realize that much of what we call self is in fact a social construction. He introduced concepts that revolutionized psychology, such as the process of individuation, the journey of becoming who we truly are, free from the layers of conditioning imposed by the external world. For Jung, true fulfillment lies not in fitting into expectations, but in integrating all parts of our being, including those that we repress, deny, or simply ignore. From ancient texts to Eastern spiritual traditions, the path to self-knowledge has always been seen as an arduous but necessary process. In Taoism, we talk about the importance of embracing both light and shadow. In Hermeticism, we understand that human beings carry multiple facets within themselves, and that only by accepting them can we achieve true wisdom. The problem is that few dare to follow this path. It is easier to go with the flow, to live according to standards that have been handed to us without question. And so, we spend years believing that we are just the persona, the mask we wear to interact with the world. But what happens when we start to question this superficial identity? What do we discover when we look beyond the reflection in the mirror? Jung gives us an answer that can be both liberating and frightening. Most of us still do not know ourselves, and the reason for this lies in the deep mechanisms of the mind, which operate in an invisible but decisive way. The path to authenticity requires courage, as it forces us to face everything we hide from ourselves. Now that we understand the roots of this illusion, let's dive deeper. What are the blocks that prevent people from finding their true selves? Now you must be wondering, how can we overcome them? Below, I will provide the answer to this question. If you are enjoying this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a like. It will help me a lot. From the moment we are born, we are shaped by forces that we cannot always see. Family, culture, society, the media, they all teach us how we should be, what we should desire, and most importantly, what we should hide. So, without realizing it, we begin to build a character, a set of behaviors and beliefs that make us feel accepted. Jung called this mask the persona. The persona is not a bad thing in itself. It is necessary for us to navigate the world, to relate and interact with others. However, the problem arises when we confuse ourselves with this mask, believing that it is our true identity. The more we identify with the persona, the further we distance ourselves from who we really are. But while there is a part of ourselves that we show to the world, there is also another part that we hide, a side that we consider inadequate, shameful, or even dangerous. This hidden side of the psyche was called by Jung as the shadow. It is made up of all the repressed impulses, the denied desires, the fears we pretend not to have. However, the shadow does not disappear just because we choose to ignore it. It manifests itself in unexpected ways, in outbursts of anger, in self-destructive behavior, in envy, or in judgments we make of others. Often, what bothers us most about others is an exact reflection of what we deny in ourselves. Jung believed that the true process of individuation, the path to finding our true self, only happens when we stop running from the shadow and start integrating it. Instead of fearing it, we should look at it with curiosity. What can it teach us? What parts of ourselves are there, waiting to be accepted? Most people spend their entire lives avoiding this confrontation. They remain distracted, filling their time with entertainment, excessive work, superficial relationships, anything that prevents silence, that prevents the moment when they need to look within. But those who dare to face their own shadow discover something extraordinary. Within it, there are not only our fears, but also our greatest potential. When we integrate our shadow, we become more complete, more authentic. We stop being just characters in a social theater and start acting according to our true essence. We are no longer guided by the fear of judgment or the need for acceptance. We become free. But how can we, in practice, begin this process of integration? How can we access this hidden part of ourselves without being consumed by it? Integrating the shadow is one of the most challenging and transformative processes a human being can experience. This is because it requires a deep level of self-honesty. Jung said that what we do not face within ourselves will eventually control us from the outside. And in fact, the shadow does not disappear simply because we ignore it. It infiltrates our behaviors, our relationships, and even our life choices. But how can we begin to integrate this hidden part of our psyche? The first step is to acknowledge its existence. Ask yourself, what are the aspects of my personality that I avoid acknowledging? What emotions scare me or make me feel vulnerable? Often, what we criticize in the outside world is an accurate reflection of what we deny in ourselves. The second step is to observe the repetitive patterns in your life. Is there a situation that you experience over and over again, as if it were a never-ending cycle? Perhaps you always attract the same type of relationship, engage in the same conflicts, or face similar challenges. These patterns are not coincidences. They are manifestations of your shadow trying to get your attention. The third step is to bring to light what is hidden. This can be done in a number of ways, through writing, meditation, therapy, or even by observing your dreams. Jung believed that dreams are direct messages from the unconscious, symbols that reveal parts of ourselves that have not yet been accepted. By analyzing them, we can perceive what our mind is trying to tell us, what needs to be acknowledged so that we can evolve. Another powerful method for integrating the shadow is to practice authentic self-expression. This means allowing yourself to feel and express emotions that were previously repressed, whether through art, music, writing, or simple honesty in your relationships. Many people spend their lives containing their anger, sadness, and frustration, without realizing that these emotions, when understood and channeled correctly, can be great allies in the process of self-knowledge. But be careful. Integrating the shadow does not mean acting impulsively or giving in to negative impulses. It does not mean being dominated by destructive desires or allowing the shadow to control your actions. It does mean acknowledging its existence and transforming it into conscious power. When you embrace your shadow, it stops being a hidden enemy and becomes an ally, a source of energy that can be used to grow and strengthen yourself. Ultimately, the journey of individuation is about becoming whole. It's not about becoming perfect or free from flaws, but about accepting all parts of yourself, both the light and the dark. And when that happens, a new level of freedom and authenticity emerges. But there is one last secret, something that can take this journey to a deeper level. Because finding yourself is not just about looking within, it's also about learning to navigate the world with this new awareness. How can we apply this transformation in practical life? How does it impact our choices, our relationships, and our connection to the universe? The journey to finding yourself doesn't end with recognizing your shadow. That's just the beginning. True transformation happens when we bring this new knowledge into the world, when we learn to live authentically, without letting ourselves be imprisoned by the fear of rejection or the need for approval. But how can we apply this to our daily lives? The first change begins with the way we make decisions. Often, we choose paths based on what others expect of us. Society teaches us that we must follow certain standards in order to be accepted: stable job, a relationship that seems ideal in the eyes of others, a structured life within the norms. But when we truly get to know ourselves, we realize that what makes sense to others may not be what truly fulfills us. The key to living authentically is to act with intention. Instead of simply reacting to life's circumstances, we begin to question our choices. Are we making decisions based on fear or courage? Are we following a path out of conviction or simply to avoid the discomfort of other people's judgment? When we become aware of this process, we stop being passengers in our own existence and take control of our own trajectory. Another fundamental aspect is authenticity in relationships. When we live according to our essence, some people inevitably distance themselves. This can be painful at first, but it is part of the process. Many of the relationships we cultivate throughout life are based on our persona, that mask we create to be accepted. When we remove this mask, some connections disappear, but others, truer and deeper, begin to emerge. In addition, we begin to see people differently. When we understand our own shadow, we become more compassionate towards the flaws of others. We stop judging others so harshly because we realize that everyone carries their own internal struggles. This does not mean passively accepting everything, but rather acting with more awareness and less reactivity. Another crucial point is the relationship with fear and failure. Jung taught us that the more we run away from something, the more power we give it. Fear should not be an enemy to be eliminated, but rather a teacher to be understood. When we learn to look at our fears without running away from them, we realize that many of them are just illusions created by the mind, barriers that we ourselves have built over time. True freedom comes when we let go of the need to control everything. When we accept the uncertainty of life and stop trying to predict every detail of the future, we begin to flow with existence. This does not mean being passive or resigned, but rather trusting that when we are aligned with our inner truth, the right opportunities arise naturally. And this is the ultimate paradox. The more we try to control life, the more lost we feel. But when we surrender to the process of self-discovery and live according to our essence, everything begins to fall into place. Choices become clearer, relationships more authentic, and life takes on new meaning. So the final question is, are you ready to let go of the illusions that hold you back and start living your truth? Because this journey isn't just about finding yourself, it's about becoming everything you've always been, but haven't yet had the courage to be.